एक के बाद एक कोविड पॉजिटिव बच्चे अस्पताल में आने लगे। कई रात उन्होंने बच्चों की देखभाल करते हुए अस्पताल में गुजारा। मुझे घबराहट हो रही थी। मैंने उनसे कहा, कुछ वक्त के लिए अस्पताल बंद कर देते हैं ना। तो कहने लगे, ये सब भी तो हमारे ही बच्चे हैं। इन्होंने रात दिन एक करके हर बच्चे की जान बचाई। सब कुछ इतना अचानक हुआ कि मुझे कोई समझ नहीं आया। इनको कोसों दूर कोविड स्पेशलिटी अस्पताल लेके जाना पड़ा। मुझे लगा सुबह होगी उनका फोन आएगा। फोन आया पर उनका नहीं। उनके जाने के एक हफ्ते बाद ज्ञानप्रिया आई। मुझे लगा कि उनके बिना मैं क्यों जीऊं। पर बहुत काम बाकी है। उनके अधूरे सपने का वो अब एक व्यक्ति नहीं, एक विचारधारा है। अब उनके मकसद में वो जिंदा रहेंगे।
Well, that is a very heart-rending, one of the many films that we will be playing through this summit. One of the films that really talks about the situation that we all have been through, and I think P&G has put it out beautifully. But if I can come back to you on the role of academia in driving equality and lead the conversation forward to what Sonali was talking about. Sonali, you did speak about that one needs to call out when there are gender biases, right? Often it is being done in the corporate world, but within the academic environment, especially in classrooms perhaps, or within debates as well between students at a public fora, how can we bring in that equality where there are students, including men, who are championing the cause of gender equality? And Professor Hema, would you like to take this question?
First of all, for all this, I think we have to, leadership matters a lot, because we have to create an ecosystem into the organization which is very conducive, which is giving confidence to share. It's not only the gender diversity, but inclusivity, because many times it happens that the student, whether it is whatever the gender and all, many times they are lacking into the confidence level, because from whatever the background. So intelligence is there. When they crack the NITIE admission, they are already talented, but they don't have that confidence. And then we are also paying a lot of attention to such people, and we are actually, like say everybody comes from a different platform, like say their engineering backgrounds are different and all, and whatever the latest trends of technology, NITIE always actually makes a lot of efforts in the to updating on the latest technologies. Especially now I can see that the leadership of our Manoj Kumar Tiwari, he has also made a lot of special efforts and how to float the global programs, and in what are the different technological actually dimensions we have to strengthen the students, like say analytics or AI, ML and all such type of things also we are thinking of. Then so one is that floating the courses apart from the academic curriculum, we are also doing all these value adding series. Many times we float the courses on this personality development and then the communication skills. For that, we also involve our alums, and I'm really thankful to our alums. They are actually giving complete handholding, lot of support to NITIE for grooming our students. So this is our ongoing activity. Now we have made it as a value-added series. We have added it, and then it is also taking care of all this aspect. So global certification program that give exposure to the what is happening in this, and all the professors from the MIT and all, they are actually means on this teaching platform. So lot of exposure students are getting. Apart from that, as I already mentioned, that when they are going for the summer internship projects and all, so we have also started one new trend, like whatever the alums who are already there into the organization, they have cracked the PPO, or the seniors, just immediate seniors who have cracked the PPO. So they are also doing the hand-holding session. So, and it helps us to create the good ecosystem. But still, sometimes it also happens that sometimes some of the students, they require some special attention, because in an academic environment, when they stay specifically in hostel, there are sometimes you find that there are some students are undergoing depression, or they are actually, though they are having the lack of confidence level, or they are not mingling up. So this aspect also we have to take care. And for that, how we are doing it, we are conducting a lot of students activities, right from the sports, then multiple events, like say Avartan and all, which are actually the we can say that the corporate events is the biggest corporate event in India, and also the lot of panel discussions, and then we are also giving them scope for the creativity, the art, painting, singing, music. So we are having many committees, students committees, and the students get chance to participate in all these committees, and this helps them to groom themselves, and then when they get exposure, they mingle up with people, and then slowly their confidence level gets boosted. So these all efforts we are actually doing, and it is giving a good result. But one social concern I wanted to share is that even though, once they are in, sometimes it also happens that after first module, the girls, specifically 2-3 girls this last year also, they have left the course. And it was, I was really, I literally cried. I just tried to convince the parents. But the parents were saying, no, uski shadi karana zyada important hai. One person told, no, we are having some financial crisis, some domestic problems and all. And this is something, something it pains me a lot. So I feel, however, and whatever we do in academic institute as such, internally, whatever we do, but this mindset, also change of mindset is also required at a parental level. So for that also, we are also, we have created the alum talks, and their videos we are popularizing, so that the students can learn from their experiences, and they can also share the journey, like, how from all the adverse background, how they have grown to such a global leadership and all. So such type of inspiring things we are doing, and many, I think, many might have been able to convince their parents, like, and they are successful. But still, it's so unfortunate that after doing all the efforts also, still some of the girls are dropping. So there I am having the social concern, like we'll have to educate the parents as well.
Yeah, that's something so crucial that you have raised, Professor Hema. I'm going to put that to Virendra. One is the academic environment, but this is something you also referred to, Virendra, about parents having a role, right? So whether it is introducing girls to cricket or introducing boys to dance classes, how can to expand sort of the social construct towards gender equality, how can parents and families have a role to facilitate the change, so that educational institutes also don't face an example of like what Professor Hema spoke about?
See, so thanks for asking that question, Rupali. So I think this has to, it's a complex problem, right? And it has to happen over a period of time. And both, I think, family and the schools or even the colleges, they have to actually play a role. Right, we keep on talking about that for too long. The focus has been on the science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and medicine also, right, which we call as the STEM subjects, right? So even there, the participation of the girls is lesser. But I think somewhere, in my view, right, though I have a very diverse view on that, but in my view, what has happened, right? Even now, even though we are pushing girls also into these subjects, but I think we are actually missing a big piece. And as I'm saying, I have a little diverse view, but we are actually missing the importance for arts, humanities, and social sciences, right? And in my view, this should not be underestimated, right? Because history, theology, and the social policies, they help us understand how communities behave and the likely actually consequence of these responses, right? In turn, basically, literature, art, and music help us navigate the human condition, enhance the well-being, and creating that social change, right? And the real power, according to me, is the intersection of between these subjects, right? For example, COVID has demonstrated that it is impossible to separate the influence of health, right? The environment, the economic policy that has the true impact, not only the subject, right? So basically, everybody has to come together and understand first that the biases has to be eradicated. Education system, we have to educate the parents about the education systems, about the sports, about the music, about everything. And the similar thing has to be imbibed by the educational institute also. For example, we can have more female representation by having some career fairs and the career days, right? We can go to the school and talk about basically what are the opportunities which are there in the STEM or basically in supply chain or basically in the other areas, right? About the sports, about the other things, right? It has to be a very inclusive effort from the families, from the friends. As a parent, I need to basically challenge my basically some of the old biases from the grandparents of the kids, right? Saying that no, my kids can go and actually become a great cricketer. So that as a parent, I need to do. Similarly, as a teacher, as a professor, what Professor Himatate is saying, right? They should give more chances to the girls to actually speak into the classroom, right? If somebody is cutting them off, I think so we need actually it's very important to have the diversity among the faculty also, right? Because I think if the faculty is very diverse, right, they will feel for that girl child more, right? And third and most important thing, Rupali, means I think Professor Hemadadi talked about that when she joined NITIE, she was having the same hostel, right? And now there is a dedicated hostel. I will tell the other side of this side. I think in my view, we have to actually start removing any basically differentiation between the gender. Right. For example, I actually studied in I never studied in a co-education actually, right? But now all the kids are, and it was little bit difficult for me to understand basically the other gender, right? Till I get into a relationship, right? But if basically girls and boys, they stay together, boys have to learn to actually respect the females, right? They have to understand basically their sensitivities, their challenges, and I think that will be, we have to create a very similar environment for everybody. At the same time, means I understand the sensitivity, and we need to provide safety and other things. But if the environment is conducive, if the same opportunity is provided, I think together all these things can drive that change.
This is very interesting, Virendra. Just as a personal example, I've been brought up in a boarding which is co-ed. So not just the school, but also the hostel in which both boys and girls were living literally under the same quarters. And of course, educational institutes in a way need to look at both genders with neutral pair of eyes. However, to get to that mature position, there is a lot of discussion and hand-holding I think we need. And Lubena, I'm going to bring in where organizations like FICCI Flow can perhaps contribute to this. Globally, there has been a lot of interest in the triple helix approach, which involving the government, the corporate, and the academia to align towards common goals. And this includes gender equality. How can organizations like both FICCI and Flow really be the fulcrum of this triple helix when it comes to exposing students to the corporate world and also initiating them towards driving gender equality?
I'm wearing two hats, Rupali. One is of a businesswoman who is manufacturing socks in an extremely male-dominated industry, and I think Virendra can vouch for it. A little background that we have a company where it's two women founders, started with 40 people. Today we have 500, of which 48% are women. And I think the first thing that we did was enable a safe space for women, whether it's emotional, whether it's mental, or whether it's physical. So that is why women feel more and more empowered and stronger to bring more women at work, and speak out and speak up. So coming back to the point that I think everybody else was making also, that yes, it's a shared responsibility, with Vicky Flo working with both industry. The tie-up with NITIE is proof that we're very keen that we become involved in conversations with academia, as well as civil society and the government. Now, all of these bits of the puzzle are kind of bringing us to the point that we're saying we need to call these out. We need to make sure that women feel safe, also safe in terms of their skill is being protected. We're constantly upgrading women. I mean, again, coming back to the Mustang example, we have equal pay for equal work. Women get equal pay. We had to struggle. That wasn't, so these are operational struggles that I'm talking about. It was very difficult for both me and my business partner to convince department heads, who were primarily at that point male, that she's doing the same job. I mean, there was a time where we used to do a lot of heavy lifting, and I understand that, women couldn't do those kind of jobs, but now it's a lot more intellectual. We've gotten very automated, and we managed to sustain that women will get paid equally, and we get more women working at our place because it's a safe space. I mean, I'm giving you an example. These are ground level examples. That we have somebody called Jyoti who's been working with us for 18 years. She has polio in one leg, and she continues to work with us because we were the only factory in all of Palghar that offered a stool. Very simple, right? It's really not done anywhere. So we made it conducive for women to come in, to feel comfortable, to feel safe in every possible way. Then work-life balance, of course, everybody has the flexibility, including men. It doesn't mean that if there's a PTA, he can't go. It's very, very comfortable for everybody to go. And of course, there is representation of women throughout the ladder. It's not only at the factory level, but it's in the offices, in the management as well. Our chartered accountant is a woman, our legal expert is a woman, our HR consultant is a woman. So it's basically, you have to walk the talk, you have to make that difference, and I think you have to make sure that you make it conducive, the whole environment, and that's what we've done. And this, if I can, it's very simple. If we as an industry can create an ecosystem in a small way that makes it so conducive for women to be 48% part of it, and we've also, I want to come back to Sonali's point, we've almost made it a hidden KRA that you cannot lose out on a woman employee. If it's skill, we will teach them. If it's anything else, we understand. But if it's skill and they have the effort to learn, we will keep them on.
Right.
And so if we can do it, so the idea is to tell people that if we can do it in such a small way at an industry level, I'm sure learning from each other and learning from these diverse networks is what we're trying to do here, right? Sharing, learning, understanding, and getting more women to come on the space. And I think as women leaders, women business women, we found it more easier because it comes very naturally to us. To understand where a woman is coming from. And I think the more diverse you have teams and you build in all these spaces, the more you will find it more seamless and more natural to have women around.
Interesting point, Lubina. Having women across all leadership levels, right, in the workforce, that's important, because that's one way to have diversity and inclusion across an organization. And I'm going to carry that question to Sonali. How are you doing it at P&G? There is a lot of emphasis on diversity and inclusion at P&G, and we've all heard about it. So we'd like to know from you, what are some of the examples that the rest of us can learn from?
Yeah, so a couple of thoughts, and maybe just a quick summary. First of all, I think yes, we've made a lot of progress. I think we're very proud of it, but we have a long way to go. So I will not by any means say that we are where we are, right? Because there is a leaky bucket that happens at various stages in life and career. Apart from the few things that I talked, that we've really made it a deliverable as much as a business deliverable of our leaders. Okay, so if you are the leader of a team or the country or a business, it is pretty much something that you have to drive. And we look at it with a lot of close scrutiny. But then we partner to say what are the kind of barriers right from entry level to maybe helping people understand what are the kind of jobs and careers, exposing them early on, including students during our internship programs, when we go to campuses, to role models, who can share their stories. That helps kind of bring in, I would say more than 50% of women for us at hiring, including in areas like supply chain. The third is around, being very intentional about understanding that there are kind of life stages, career stages, which are there for women and actually for many men as well, right? Now more and more. And we've really looked at a lot of our policies, whether it is kind of parental care and other support, relocation support, career support, all of that work-life balance, to look at how do we make them as gender neutral as possible so that we drive adoption. For example, I'll give you, an anecdote. We recently launched, a set of policies on parental leave called Share the Care. And the whole idea is that it's not just maternity. It's paternal leave, including fairly extensive paternity leave for men. Now, when you took 5 days paternity leave, it was great. Now you're telling men you can take up to, 4 weeks, 8 weeks. Some men are taking, but they're also facing biases, where managers and others, the first few men who are taking, they're being asked, oh, really? Wow. They're also having the same questions around career. And if you see younger, dads, as much as moms, they want to have a share in their child's time, etc. And this enables, but we're seeing that it's interesting, they're having some of the same kind of facing some unconscious biases. So we're trying to see how do we kind of regularize that. And the last but not least, I would say, is dialogue is extremely important. Okay, and this is as much as finding ways to call out when there is something which is frankly not gender inclusive, making it visible, calling it out, having a shared dialogue on so what we can do, and then making sure that everyone across the organization understand what expectations are, what the standards are, right? And you have to do that in large organizations. We have from corporate offices all the way to the factories. So you have to put some effort behind that. I will say one learning that it is a lot of heavy lifting, right? So by no means is it, okay, let's put, 2 women on our leadership team and we're done. That pardon the word, to me is tokenism. So you have to be committed to it. You have to be committed for the long term. You have to make sure that people who are driving that are rewarded, and those who are not sometimes, fully on the journey, understand that that's what it takes to be part of the organization and today's world. And so you have to be very intentional about it. You have to keep on pulling and pushing. But those are some of the things that I think have worked for us.
Very interesting points out here that you are bringing up, and I'm going to, in fact, pick up from that and ask the question to each one of you all, bringing in men into this conversation. And we're so glad that Virendra is with us, and we would like to, let me start with you. How can we bring in more men into this conversation so that men are also equally responsible, accountable, and championing the cause of driving equality?
No, absolutely. Actually, men have to champion that, right? Because if you see that traditionally the problem, the bias was actually being the society was always the male dominated, and the problem actually started from that. They are taking it for granted. The 50% of the population was ignored, and now basically I think the organizations have taken the step, right? Sonali talked about corporates have taken actually steps, and I think that since we all are actually part of the this corporate world, we all have goals, right? So certain basically things actually comes very naturally. Certain things come through the education. Certain things comes through basically our corporate commitments and goals, right? So as an individual, means obviously men. Means I'm being a basically parent of basically 2 daughters. Means if you see in my family, I'm in minority, right? Basically my wife and 2 daughters. So I understand them, right? So is the men will understand, and that comes because of I think that will come if we create more inclusive society. where there is basically the male can understand the other sex in a much better way, their challenges, their commitment. And I think a lot of these things will eventually, the corporates and the education system will actually play a role, right? For example, I'm very proud to say, right, that I was actually part of Intel for 8-10 years, and I would not be wrong that what I have seen in Intel, right, they were one of the few pioneers, right, who started focus on diversity, and they have taken it very, very seriously, right? Over the past decade, if you see, they have taken actually actions to actually deeply integrate diversity and inclusion, and they imbibe that into their culture, into their performance management system, into their leadership expectation, into their bonus metrics, and they regularly and very transparently report on the progress in the data. And all these things is actually available in the public domain. So they have a integrated actually strategy focused on hiring, retention, progression, and they met their 2020 goals, if I'm not wrong, 2 years basically earlier, right, with whatever target they had. So once the corporate or the education system or the families actually, they take it very seriously, I think everybody has to play a part, and male actually they are playing their role, right? For example, I am today also, since I came from that culture, right, I realized the importance of diversity, that how actually it can help improve the top line, how it can actually improve the creativity in the workplace, right? We also learned these things, which we were not aware 20 years back, right? Now there is enough data to actually prove that how the diversity helps the top line. And some of these actually initiatives by the basically the institutions and also by some of these initiatives taken by the educational institutions and the corporates are actually now being supported by the basically the male representatives, right? Because they understand it better, it is part of their goal, and they see basically how this is overall benefiting, right? So it's a win-win. It's not a question of male versus female, but yeah, male has to actually play a role because we are still in a dominant position, right? It's still the ratio is still biased, significantly biased towards the male. So they have to actually do their part.
So Professor Hema, from an academic environment, how can we bring in more men into the conversation as equal stakeholders, as champions? So not men who are calling the shots, but men who are equal partners in change.
Yeah, I think whatever Viren has suggested, I will. I'm really just seconding that also, because in corporates also the culture is when the corporates are taking lot of initiatives, the policies for I can see that many corporates are saying that if you are recruiting, allowing us to give so many girl candidates, then only the recruitment will happen. Otherwise, we'll walk out and all. So these are the very good initiatives are taken up by the corporates, and it is in one way it is helping the academic institute also to create that culture. Even academic institute also is understanding the importance of the girls, and they also know, of course, for every student placement or their future and their and the settlement of the life is very important. And because of this corporates initiative, it has also having a cascading effect on the academia. And every academia is also just trying to see that what is the number, the ratio should be maintained, and we also are making some special efforts to admit more girl candidates and all. And what I feel that the younger generations are very positive in all those aspects. When I could see that the way we had, we were doing some group activities, like we were on sideline, like say girls and all. But now I can see that the environment is very positive. In fact, the boys or their batchmates, they themselves are encouraging the girl students to participate. They are doing hand-holding, and hand-holding also is, equally, the girls are also equally competent and all. So whatever the cultural change, I find that, considering our generations and considering this, there are a lot of positive changes are there into this generation. And these biases are, I don't think that the negative biases are there. But as far as the policy matters and the administrations and everything is concerned, the government should take more initiatives to promote the girls in academia. And still, I think at least in higher learning institutes, this can be reflected. But at undergrad level and all, still I think the some reforms are really required, because if you see the ratio from the awareness is not there. When we see from the undergrad to postgraduate, the ratios are really dropping down. So they should be aware that how the higher learnings are important for it, and this why for this purpose the policy reforms are also essential, and not only at the academia level but at the government level also, at the state government, central government, and everything. Such type of reforms are also required, so that some policy itself will be helping the more girl students to be in. And as I already mentioned that in academia, at least in our institutes and in higher learning institute, the atmosphere is very conducive, and that positive change is already there from the no gender biases is there. In fact, quite supportive and conducive environment is there.
Right. And very quickly, Lubena and Sonali, coming to you, Lubena, calling for that change, having boys and men as not just calling the shots or leading the change, but becoming stakeholders.
Yes, I'll keep it quick. I break it down into home and at work. I would think that at home it is essential that the family structure, not only the men, but the entire family becomes supportive to the woman. Again, a ground level example. There are days where women are working late. They come home late and say, it's a night shift, I've done it, I've worked late hours. And we have to be up, dressing the kids, go to school, pack their boxes, get them dressed and whatever. That's what's usually expected of a woman, right? Whereas if it's a man who's worked late, he's sleeping. Hush, let him sleep. He needs his rest, he needs his sleep time. So these are basic changes that we need at home of how we view the woman. And more than anything, COVID was a great example. Men took up the brooms, took up the knives, cut vegetables, did everything possible. But COVID gone, and the help and the support is gone. So men have to own the fact that they're not helping the women. It is a shared responsibility. They're not a support, but they have to own up at the family front and say, this is my responsibility, it is shared. So that's the whole home front. And there's a wonderful, I'll refer to a P&G ad that is Share the Load, where they had the woman communicate very beautifully with the husband about sharing the load. At some point, I'm sure you'll see the ad. And I love that ad. And the second is at work, how you have the boys clubs and how, men have these boys clubs that you have. I think the integrating of women into all of these areas is essential, and that's how you kind of let them into the space and get them more involved in conversation. So that's how I think would be. That's my take, my piece on that.
So now I'm finding from you.
Yes, I'll say one, and this is a personal learning, is that everyone who's on the journey, of course, female leaders, but everyone, you need to pay it forward, right? Sometimes we are in our own bubbles where we think, we've kind of made it and we've not, but the reality is that there's a lot more, that can be done. So I think all of us in whatever roles we have, we need to play a part. I mean, I started out, you were talking about confidence, Professor Hema, I think of myself 20 years ago, not for anything else. I would just, some anxiety, confidence, should I go for a job? Should I move internationally? But now having done that, I make it a point, whether personally or professionally, that you need to help, because to let others know that it is possible. Right? And I think we all have a role to play there, no matter, what your gender or role, to really make the change come to life.
Thank you so much, Professor Hema, Virendra, Lubena, and Sonali, for this engaging conversation. Different perspective coming in from different vantage points, but all are talking about the need to move that needle and to get women closer to driving to the gender equality that we all are looking forward to. We'll play a lovely film for you now and then take a short break, returning with the next panel in a few minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
बस पहुंचने वाले हॉस्पिटल 5 minutes more. प्लीज जल्दी चलो.
चुपके से आजा a baby girl. आप बाप बन गए.
सुना है प्रेगनेंसी पेन में 21 हड्डियों के टूटने जितना दर्द होता है. तुमने ये दर्द सहा, पर मैंने तो ऐसा कुछ भी नहीं किया. ये इतना आसान नहीं होगा. आई नो. कभी इसे हंसाने के लिए मुझे रोना पड़ेगा. कभी घंटों जाग के इसे सुलाना पड़ेगा. आधी रात को उठना पड़ेगा तो दिन में खामोशी से रहना पड़ेगा. कभी नई लैंग्वेज सीखनी पड़ेगी तो अक्सर इशारों में ऑर्डर भी मानना पड़ेगा. और हाँ, जो अब तक देखा है, सुना है कि ये सब माँ की जिम्मेदारी है, उसे शेयर करना सीखना होगा. बाप कहने से नहीं बनते, मुझे बाप बनना पड़ेगा.
इस उस्त्रे ने इंतजार किया है, इस कुर्सी ने इंतजार किया है, इस कुर्सी के लिए आपके इंतजार ने इंतजार किया है. इंतजार किया है उन ऐतिहासिक पारियों ने, सेम टू सेम कट कराते यारों की यारियों ने, चंपी पर हरदम होती उधारियों ने. देश विदेश का बदलता हाल, कौन बनेगा करोड़पति ये सवाल. दाढ़ी में उलझा वो एक सफेद बाल, हर जज्बात ने इंतजार किया है.
ये इंतजार हमारे बार्बर भाइयों ने भी किया है. अपनों को खोया, इस मुश्किल दौर को जिया है, और यही जाना है कि इस घड़ी में अगर कुछ बेहद जरूरी है तो वो है अपने परिवार की हिफाजत.
जिलेट का बार्बर सुरक्षा प्रोग्राम पिछले 1 साल से अपने बार्बर भाइयों के स्वास्थ्य एवं सुरक्षा के लिए अथक प्रयास कर रहा है. इस साल हम उनको ही नहीं बल्कि उनके परिवार को भी 1 लाख तक का कोविड हेल्थ इंश्योरेंस कवर दे रहे हैं. साथ ही साथ देश भर में वैक्सीनेशन के लिए जिलेट और पीएनजी ने अपना आर्थिक योगदान भी दिया है. ये भी वक्त है, गुजर जाएगा. ये इंतजार जरूर रंग लाएगा. जिलेट बार्बर परिवार सुरक्षा प्रोग्राम.
we are back after that break. I hope you enjoyed the films as much as you have enjoyed the conversations that we have been having all this morning. And just a quick reminder that we also have part 2 of the quiz coming up after the panel discussion. And I do believe that some of the questions that we are asking, the hints to that, also lead you to some of the answers of the quiz, so keep watching. Welcome back, and we are jumping right into the Industry Leaders Roundtable now. Looks like we've had a bit of a change here. The effect of the pandemic perhaps still playing out. We will be missing having Ram Praveen Swaminathan, the MD and CEO of Mahindra Logistics, with us at the roundtable today. So all of you who were waiting for him, just to let you all know, but we have a surprise for you. And Mr. Ankur Bhagat, Vice President, Product Supply and Chief Supply Chain Officer, as well as the Executive Sponsor for LGBTQ plus and inclusion at P&G Indian Subcontinent and P&G India, is joining us. He's graciously accepted the very last minute, so thank you so much for that, Ankur. Also joining us is Tanya Singh, founder and CEO of StoreSpace, as well as Nancy Malhotra, the Senior Director Supply Chain at Procter & Gamble. So welcome everybody, and let's jump straight in. There are many entry points really to this discussion on creating an equal work culture within the industry and also outside the industry. Now, an equal culture can be comprehended in different ways in different organizations. All of you here are at your leadership positions and are able to guide many of us who are joining this conversation, and including students who are part of this audience. So I'd like to begin by asking all of you all one by one, from your vantage view, what should an equal culture really look like at the workplace? Would you like to take it first, Nancy?
Indeed, Rupali, would love to take that question. You know, it's a long and arduous journey. And in my opinion, the journey for an equal culture has 3 milestones. There is diversity, there is inclusion, and then there is belonging. Let me take an analogy to explain what I mean by these 3 milestones. Diversity is like being invited to a party. Suppose there is a party happening in your workplace, and every person, every employee, whether they are a man or a woman, has an equal chance of getting invited to that party. That is the core, basic, fundamental. It's like a company saying, I recruit equal number of men and women. Yeah, a big deal, right? I mean, there are equal number of men and women in the world. So to me, doing that much of bare minimum work is simply covering the first milestone of diversity. The second milestone is inclusion. Inclusion is if in that party that you ended up going to with the other employees of your company, you know, your friends come over and they ask you to dance with them. So you have broken through the outer cordon and you are part of the inner circle where people feel that they can enjoy with you and you feel that you are having a good time with your colleagues. This is when I would say a company has created a culture within the company where people feel that they can do their best, where they feel that there is no old boys circle, where they feel that there is enough support network for the women. But then there is a final step. That's the belonging. That's the milestone that comes that when you are invited to dance at that party, you can really dance as if no one is watching. That's when you can let yourself free. You can be yourself without a care for who is judging you. Now, that milestone is reached when companies like P&G and other corporates can truly influence not just internally, but externally what is going on. If we can spark a bit of change in the outside world, where women are treated equally to men, where in the families women have the same status, that's when a woman would feel that she does not need to hesitate in being who she is. So, in my opinion, if we are able to get our corporate cultures, our country culture, our environmental culture to the state of the belonging, that's when our journey would be over.
Beautifully put, Nancy, and I think you've already brought a smile on the face of all the other participants here, and I'm sure the audience as well. Seema, over to you. What does an equal culture really look like from your vantage point? I'm then going to put this question to, I beg your pardon, Tanya, over to you. Sorry about that. I'm going to ask you that question once again.
Thank you everyone for having me. I think it's been a great session so far. And I think summits like these are wonderful to initiate a conversation and a dialogue on so many aspects of gender equity, diversity and inclusion. I think I'd like to take my example to answer your question. I come from a family which basically comes from a family of civil servants, and I'm the first female entrepreneur of the family as such, and I have a background in mathematical research, and so that's an industry which is probably a part of the male bastion, and so is supply chain industry as such. So for me, I think equal culture and equal opportunity means that there are two aspects of it, one from a corporate standpoint and the other from the warehousing and the bottom of the pyramid standpoint. I think that everyone in the organization, be it from the bottom of the pyramid or from the top of the pyramid, should feel that they can apply to any opportunity that is available, irrespective of their gender, irrespective of their different abilities, and also with respect to their age and cultural background and so on and so forth. I think we as an organization have taken several initiatives where we have even with respect to technicians at our warehouses, we have female battery-operated forklift operators. We have an entire shift that's being run by women. And I think those are little changes that we're trying to do at the bottom of the pyramid. And I think that is what matters to me and the organization the most. Having a sense of belonging that Nancy had just pointed out. And that sense of belonging comes from the fact that if I as an individual can see that I'm not being put in a box, right? And that to me is a great change that we are trying to sort of spark.
I'm going to probe that a little further later on the panel as well. And sorry about that, Tanya. I think I misread your name. But thanks for that. Moving on to you, Ankur. You are the executive sponsor for LGBTQ inclusion. What does that mean? And for you, coming from that point of view, what does an equal culture really look like?
All right. Hey, Rupali, so again, many thanks for having me. Real pleasure to join this esteemed panel, and I have been following the whole program. I think simply outstanding thought conversation. So many thanks, for really moderating this so well. I think I'll kind of put it in two parts, right? For me, the whole piece about equal culture is a little bit starts in some ways truly believing that it's not something which you are doing as a for good, right? I mean, it goes back to the core of first change coming from us, within us. So to say, it can be torn from the top, it can be, as Tanya put it, at the bottom, for all of us. So that to me is a very important element. I strongly believe, that if we were to think of this as something which we are doing as a force for good or only for charity, the noodle, at least in the corporate world, is not going to move as much as we would want to. And I'll come to both gender equality and to LGBTQ. I'm very passionate on both. For me, it's important that we first recognize that if we are not creating a culture which is inclusive to everybody, where everybody can get their authentic full selves to work, irrespective of their nationality, gender, sexual orientation, religion, whatever you may, we are actually going to lose out on significant business results, right? So there is a hard note business rationale to why we should have a diverse and inclusive culture in our organization. I would probably think there are three vectors, which can make a substantial difference to driving a truly inclusive culture. First is having strong talent systems. If over a period of time you are able to get diversity at every level, right up to leadership positions, and Arundhati spoke so well, regarding the C-suite and so on, right? It is just so apparent. I think some changes beginning to happen where at entry levels up to mid management you see good representation, but it becomes so narrow. And this is supply chain is maybe more acute, but transparently it's across function, and it has to be a combination of the changes that we now see with kind of some mandated representation in company boards, but it has to come from within, and it clearly translates to better business results. For me, it kind of keeps going back to that. So the right set of talent systems which provides the right opportunities for irrespective of men and women, but that should then translate into the right representation at every level. To me, that is the first and fundamental intervention that should happen towards an equal culture, which is important. To do that, you would need much stronger equality-based workplace policies, right? I'll not get into more details, but I think we talked enough, through the piece, whether it is, paternity leave, it is flexibility on work locations, especially post-COVID, where for majority of work, which does not require you to be on the shop floor, and frankly, with the use of, AI, machine learning, even to some extent on the shop floor, you don't really need to be in the same place at all the time. How do we kind of leverage that to ensure that as men or women go through different life stages, we are able to support from a workplace policy standpoint. And this again applies beyond gender also to the LGBTQ plus community, where it becomes so important. Last but not the least is something which we are doing now, is I think we have to make a deliberate effort to break the myths and the stereotypes. They are not helping anybody. These are the ones which have held us back for centuries, and thoughts and conversations like these are thought starters, but it is for the next set of the next generation, the students, the leaders who are going to come to really accelerate the momentum. It is, we have come a long way, but I would say that there is a much longer way to go to first, and maybe the corporate world is a little better, to have a society which is truly equal, irrespective of gender or on the LGBTQ front. So that's how I would look at it overall. I'll probably take another 30 seconds, on something which is very close to my heart, is to talk on a little more on, how the challenges and, some of the interventions that we see for the LGBTQ plus community. First and foremost is sheer awareness and capability building. At least within P&G, we run multiple capability building sessions, multiple trainings, simply to sensitize, people as to what are non-inclusive behaviors, what does diversity mean, right? Then ensuring that again the workplace policies are exactly the same as what we would have irrespective of gender or sexual orientation, as I mentioned. And last but not the least, championing through Pride podcasts, where we have people who are from the community globally or within P&G or external stakeholders coming and talking and sharing their learnings, because transparently and we have a affinity group called Gable, which represents LGBTQ plus. It's a group of people we have within the organization. On Gable or on LGBTQ plus, today we are at a place where we were on gender equality maybe 15-20 years ago. So what we need to accelerate there and is much more than where we are. And while we know that on gender equality itself, we are nowhere close to where we would want to be. So that to me is the broad scape of how we need to work this forward to get to a truly equal culture across organizations.
Ankur, you've raised a very, very important point here, because when we speak about gender, we're speaking about the entire spectrum, really. And that is something that you have highlighted so beautifully that I'm not going to repeat that, but you have managed to cover the entire spectrum. And that brings me to the next question, really. The ultimate position of a mature gender equal culture would be a gender neutral culture, where policies are for all, right? Where variables such as equal opportunity or lack of biases have already been addressed, where we no longer have to use terminologies to emphasize or to seek equality, right? So the truth really is, however, that at the position as we are in today, 2022, we are very, very far from the absolutely gender neutral world, where everyone has everything possible equally for them. That meets their needs of what equality stands for. avenues like these, what you also spoke about, are important to amplify the conversation so we move closer to driving gender equality and be at a gender neutral position. Now, at an organizational level, Nancy, if I can ask you this question, especially in areas like supply chain and logistics, which are typically male dominated, how can organizations address real life variables as they exist today for women, LGBT plus? How can these variables be addressed so that we are heading towards a gender neutral culture?
Thanks, Rupali. That's a very, very pertinent question, because you're right. Doing the bare minimum of saying we are recruiting equal number of people, both the genders, we are promoting the right number of people in both the genders, I think those are the easy tasks. But that may move the needle a little bit, but not to the extent that we want it to, right? I think there are two more things that the organizations need to look at doing very, very deliberately and diligently. One is candid conversations, and the other one is role modeling, right? I'll talk about the role modeling first. I think anybody who has felt out of the inner circle for a long time needs to feel that the opportunity is available to them. And sometimes these thoughts, these barriers, these biases cannot simply be removed by saying, yeah, we are going to have more women at the leadership positions, or we are going to have equal LGBTQ participation. We really need to show that it is possible. We need to create role models, even if it means that sometimes we have to lean forward a little bit. 20 years back when I joined P&G, the first general manager that I worked for was a lady named Joanne Cruz. She used to lead the hair care business for Total Asia Pacific, and she was a force to reckon with. She was an extremely articulate, very put together, knew her mind and knew exactly how to put people who were trying to pull her down in their places. And I think the amount of inspiration I took from her stays with me even today. She left P&G maybe 10 years back, but the actions she took at that time, the way she conducted herself, the way she articulated her divergent viewpoints in important meetings sometimes has stayed with me. And I really think that part of the reason where I am today is because of the inspiration I took from her. I think that's what companies need to do. I have never felt that there is anything in P&G that I cannot achieve. I wish we are able to have role models like her in every organization. The second part of what I believe would make the needle move forward is candid conversation. The reality is, despite having the role models and despite having equal policies, the needs of individuals as human beings are different. Candid conversations between managers and their employees and mentors and their mentees is important to break the myths on what is needed for this gender equality to become a norm rather than something to be talked about in forums only.
Tanya, putting that to you, Nancy has summed it up really well, and I'm going to throw that ball to you about role models and the role of mentors. Is there, through example, a viewpoint that you would like to share on that?
Yes, thank you so much. Thanks, Rupali, and thanks, Nancy, for that. So I think role modeling starts right at your home and it extends up to your workplace. So I think coming from a family, my father has really supported me in pursuing my dreams and not making me feel that as a woman, if you look at today, the statistics are abysmal. Only 14% of the entrepreneurs today in India are women. Right? And even if you look at women in logistics, so I think getting that support very, very early on from my family was very, very important for me to have that gumption to come and start something of my own, of anything, let alone in supply chain. right? So I think that support is extremely important. I wish that for everyone out there, for every young lady out there, and for everyone. And coming to the work front, I think having this kind of role models, I sort of go to warehouses on regular visits and then talk to people and say that, it is possible, and if you can have, I have seen women who have had career breaks in their life because of different life changes, and if we are able to give them enough opportunity and say that, hey, if you can upskill, because today the supply chain world is moving from a linear supply chain to a more connected, to a more digitized supply chains where you have newer skill sets. And therefore, if you can bring in and open up that talent pool and say that, hey, if you can come on board and we are going to be here to support you, I think that sort of really changed quite a lot for us. Even during the pandemic, I think organizations like FlexiBees are actually taking the initiative to bring on board women who've had career breaks and provided those kind of trainings, which we could have partnered with. And I think that sort of role modeling has a cascading effect to all the other women across the board. So I think that's how I would sort of perceive that.
Tanya, you spoke about during the pandemic what happened. You touched upon that, and my next question is, in fact, how we have seen changes in gender roles within the household, and perhaps for the better or for worse. We've heard both sides of the stories, really, how how the pandemic has impacted gender changes and, sort of the role of women, even in the home front, the role of men. LGBT is something, again, that I would like to hear from Ankur. Ankur, would you like to take this question? Are you seeing a change in perception, a change in the way men, women, LGBT employees as such are viewed and are given the space or the lack of it during the pandemic?
Yeah. So, Rupali, again, thanks. I think a very pertinent question. On this one, I would put it, I would split men and women, though I would love to not call it, as a separate, as you said at the start, gender versus LGBTQ, but the sheer difference in where we stand today on, at least men versus women versus the rest of LGBTQ, I think there is a significant gap if I were to step back and think of it from an industry perspective, right? I believe that at least, on the gender representation part, at least at a certain level, there is perceptible difference. And, if for lack of a better, sort of split, in managerial roles, as Tanya said, as supply chain gets digitized, in logistics and so on, roles which are a little more, focused on, so to say, office jobs or white collar jobs, there is a perceptible difference that I am at least seeing in the last couple of years. There is far more openness that we have, on both the corporates being open to women employees because they can see a clear business benefit. At the same time, more and more women students aspiring to supply chain careers, which was not the case couple of years. That said, I still think that there is a significant challenge if I were to compare supply chain at least as a function compared to many of the functions which is part of what we are trying to do with STEM. If you were to look at data, on an average it would still be 15 to 20%, even though the intake would be closer to 40-45. Something which I think Gargi was mentioning earlier in her address. And it tends to kind of go down, and functions like marketing, sales, HR, finance would still, IT would still probably be a little high preference, but at least has gone up from a 5% to a 15-20%. That's like a 300 to 400% jump, and looks to be moving towards. And I think that is where it is equally important that in places where we would go for looking for recruits, the intake into those institutes, starts moving up, which is part of the initiative what P&G is trying to do jointly with NITIE, to work and break this gender stereotypes, at the engineering college itself, that a STEM career is something where you can be super successful. I think Tanya also mentioned it has to be organic. Over a period of time, this can be sustained only if the change happens at a society level, and that if I were to now kind of extend it to the shop floor, I believe there is a long way to go. To imagine a time where every shop floor has a 50% women representation, I think there is still a long journey and multiple things need to fall in place, starting from simple things like regulations which allow women to work 24/7, apart from the social setup, the security setup and so on, which are real life, kind of challenges. I can share that at least at P&G we do have a couple of initiatives. Today we have had a 50% increase of women in manufacturing, and this is a kind of a substantial one, and 30% of our managers in manufacturing are women. So we feel very proud. We have recently leveraged or launched a program called Venus Betiyan, which is focused on specifically women techs, where it's a 3-year apprenticeship plus training, which they can get if they have an interest in manufacturing. But I would say that, from a larger perspective, much more needs to be done if we have to, accelerate the journey, including the efforts which the government is putting in. So, again, between academics, academia, industry, the government authorities, how this can start becoming much more bottoms up, where at a family level, the thought begins to change, and at the same time, top down, what we can do on the equivalent of the demand side, if you have to kind of match the demand and supply. If there is more demand, hopefully, the supply and, it boils down to better life in some ways and better families and so on, right? I mean, fundamentally, it will have to go that path.
Yeah, there should be, I guess, a multi-dimensional approach when we are tackling the issue of driving equality at the workplace.
Absolutely. On the other hand, I think we are just taking baby steps as far as, LGBTQ goes. As a society, it's still early days, and I think that's where we will have to accelerate much more, to ensure that inclusiveness, whether it is workplace policies, something. So I think Shonali mentioned it, we have launched the Share the Care paternity leave, which is not only for men and women, it is for all, genders, including LGBTQ plus partners. Similarly, all our benefits are now available. It's a initiative which we took recently to all LGBTQ plus partners. So these are again, stuff which is which should be basic, right, if you will, as we think of the gender representation journey, to try and accelerate equally on the LGBTQ plus part. So that
good point, Ankur. Very valid point there. In fact, Nancy, if I can come to you, are the economic costs of the lack of this gender diversity and gender inclusivity across functions, are they calculated and highlighted enough?
Rupali, if we want to really go ahead and start looking at what consultancies like McKinsey or Bain have said, we will find piles upon piles of papers that have proven it, right? It's not so much about whether it is highlighted enough in academic papers or not. Yes. It goes back to what Ankur said in the very first question, right? It is what we need to feel in our heart. Only then the leaders will take action. It's not so much about whether we can calculate on paper that, okay, I have not a 50-50 split, but 10-90 split between the genders in my organization, and this is what I'm losing. It's about really truly feeling that if the world has a equal split, or it has a certain split between various genders that exist in our world today, why should our organization not be representative of it? Especially for companies like P&G, right, or any other company which wants to serve the consumers across the world. It is always in our best interest to have the consumers reflected in our employees, right? We try and do that, and that's what would make it profitable for the companies, and that's what it would make for a more gender equal world.
Very, very valid point there, Nancy. It's not just about reports and the tick marks, but actually wanting to make a difference in the truest sense of the term. So really well put. Tanya, coming to you from someone who runs her own company and who is in what is typically seen as traditionally male-dominated. You've seen how a startup can grow. Now, for other startups, if they can take a cue from what you have done, how can startups actually build a gender equal culture from the bottom as when they are starting up?
Thanks, Rupali. I think to begin with, I would like to take you 6 years ago when I had just started. I think at the time I didn't have the luxury to say that I need to have a 50-50 split between men and women, because we did not have the kind of brand equity at the point at the time. However, we opened up our talent pool by making unconventional choices as far as hiring was concerned. A lot of our folks are from different cultural backgrounds. They're differently abled as well. We have women now taking from the bottom of pyramid, if I were to speak. There are women now running the entire shifts in multiple warehouses, ranging from e-commerce to other industries as well. But I think it was an organic process, and it did not start right at the get-go. But I think what we've realized over the last 6 years, when we were sort of analyzing our hiring efforts, is that we really figured that the bet that we took on women at that time, it really resulted into better productivity measures, at least by 15 to 18%. And once you start demonstrating that out in public, I think Sonali also had mentioned this in the earlier session. Once you start demonstrating that out in public, and you start showing people that having more diversity when you're solving a large problem can really result into better business outcomes. And that, I think, has really helped us come today. And we're a team of 100 in terms of our core team at this point in time. 2,500 people work under us at different warehouses. We manage 35 lakh square feet across India for multinationals, and top 3 by market cap are our customers today. I think it wouldn't have been possible had we not had a diverse team which is solving a large fragmented problems in a fragmented market. So I think the first point that I want to point out here is that take the bet on diversity in terms of what people can bring onto the table and the uniqueness that they bring onto the table, because you're solving a different problem here and you need different solutionings to actually go out in the market and do that. So I think that's what I would suggest people. If you're solving a large problem, and if it is not done before, get a diverse team, because you need diverse thought processes to solve for that problem. Bring a fresher approach to doing that, and I think that's how you build a culture where you have equal opportunities. So now we can say that we have a diverse diversity and inclusion agenda when we are at 100 in terms of our core team, but it was not there back then when we had started. We didn't just have the luxury to choose that at the time.
Right. And Uncle, coming to you, what about legacy organizations? It is hard to move the needle in legacy organizations. P&G has been able to do a lot on that, but what would be your advice on how the pace can really be hastened than what it is today?
So, to be honest, Rupali, this is a tough one, right? Because and I'm not saying, I think we need more of trailblazers and, thought leaders like Arundhati, because the more we have folks, and I mean, it's just humbling, right? I mean, it's amazing to see somebody like her transform an organization like SPI, to be amongst the top 3 on multiple dimensions, and then move on, to something which many of us would think, is kind of new, because I think that level of leadership, right, is what will make the difference. And especially when you mention about organizations which are legacy, the stereotypes would be much more harder to break, and hence, it will have to be a combination of true belief in leadership and tone from the top, that this is an important, it's not simply again a force for good, it's a business priority which everybody has to, which is how large scale change management can ever take place. At the same time, beginning to kind of create role models, especially as you have renewal of the organization, fresh talent coming in, because nothing speaks better than results, nothing speaks for people to believe, to break the stereotype. You can have 100 trainings and, thousands of lectures, but it finally works when people see that on the shop floor, how much better is the work culture, as Tanya was saying, how much better are the results on productivity, safety, the culture of the organization undergoes a change, transforming the results, and that's something. It will have to be probably a little slower burn than compared to what you can do if you are starting up or if you are a relatively new age organization or in a new age function. Accepting that, but ensuring that top down you have the commitment and you're really making it, driving it. but beginning to create role models is how I think you can accelerate the pace in relatively large and legacy organizations.
Well, absolutely, Ankur, very well summed up. And if I can give you all just 30 seconds each before we wrap up and ask you all on what is that one piece of advice that you would give the students who will be moving from an academic environment which is relatively protective to the workspace? How can they bring in gender equality and gender neutrality when they walk in to the workplace? Let's start with you, Nancy. 30 seconds.
If you are a woman, my advice to you is go for it. The sky is the limit. You can do it. If you are a man, my advice to you would be become an ally. It is in your best interest and in the best interest of the company that you are going to work for if you have a mindset that promotes men and women equally.
Tanya.
So I think if you're a woman working in a male-dominated industry, I would just advise three things. One is that it's never too late. Even if you've had a career break, that's all right. You can come back, and there are programs now which can help alleviate your skills and upskill you to do that. And always believe in yourself and believe that merit always triumphs. And I have seen it. I'm sure you can do it too.
Believe in yourself. Ankur, final words.
My humble request is to the men. I think the men are the one who have to take a far greater leading role. It has to start from change at home. Be an equal partner in everything that you do. That will make a fundamental difference first to the society, to your own home. Trust me, it will be a much better home, than what you would have seen otherwise. And then please ensure that as leaders of tomorrow, forget about, whether this is a force for good or not. Trust me, believe me, that there is a clear business benefit, because if you are not simply going after half of the talent available, there is no way that you can do better than anybody else, in the competing world. So that's my humble request to everybody who is out there.
Thank you. Such wise words. I've learned a lot personally, and I'm sure the audience and the students who are joining us also have. So thanks so much for your time once again, Tanya, Nancy, and Ankur. And
thank you so much.
Let's move on now. We were talking about the quiz before we started this panel discussion, and I believe we have Avichal who is ready with the second part of the quiz, Avichal, and take it from here from me.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the second round of the Venus Equality Quiz. I am glad to see so much of enthusiastic participation from all of you. There is a very stiff competition among the top three. Topping the chart after round 1 we have Kunal Bhagat, Rajat Sagar Jain and Kashyap Kedia. In second round there will again be 10 questions. Only the participants connected since round 1 will be able to answer the question, and we'll be beginning the round 2 within next 2 minutes. So show your zeal, get back to your hot seats and quickly be active on Menti again. So are you ready? Here's your first question. when we think about a transgender, we feel like they are cross-dressers, just dancing or, more into attention seeking. We can hardly picture them as a pilot or a doctor. I wanted to change this and live my life on my terms. I was fed up with all the mockeries and bullying around me. I started to hide my gender identity. And when I reached college, nobody identified me as a transgender. At a point, I thought like, why should I care about society? I need to live as myself. The greatest challenge I faced during the transition is that is from deep inside myself, not from the outside world. I was living as a boy for almost 30 years. A male is more privileged in our society than a female. In a family also, roles are given as per the gender. Conditions of transgenders are definitely worse. So everything needs to change. Changes will have to start from families. If a family accepts a kid who is a trans, definitely that kid could grow up as, a better citizen. The best example is myself. So that's it. This brings us to the end of the Venus Equality Quiz. Final leaderboard will be displayed after the supply chain masterclass. So please stay connected. Thank you for such an amazing participation throughout the event. Now we'd like to hand over to Mahima for the supply chain masterclass.
Thanks so much, Avichal. Hello folks and welcome to Supply Chain Masterclass. Let me give you a quick introduction about myself. I am Mahima Gupta and I am going to be with you for the next 45 minutes. I'm a mechanical engineer and currently a student of NITIE. When I was in my engineering college, I always used to think about getting a core mechanical job. And one fine day, I heard about NITIE from one of my seniors in college and that it was one of the best B schools for supply chain in India. That's when I started to ponder what exactly supply chain is. How do we get products from all parts of India so easily at our doorsteps? And today, from an audience standpoint, we have so many students joining us today who might actually wonder what supply chain is. Supply chain, as you understand, is a very wide area, but can be broadly divided into 4 parts. First is the upstream supply chain, the sourcing part of it. That's where we get the materials from. The second part is the manufacturing, where we convert the whole materials into finished goods. And the third is the planning process, which kind of forecasts the whole thing to ensure the correct information flow. The last one is the downstream supply chain, which means interacting with the customers. Today, as we are talking about equality in supply chain, it is a good place where we can try to understand it as a whole. There's a wide spectrum of jobs to be done in supply chain, and this is a massive area which employ people. And today in this masterclass, we wanted to share with you this wide spectrum of interesting work that can be done in supply chain. We have with us 4 outstanding P&G leaders who will be representing these 4 areas from a supply chain standpoint. So let's welcome Ms. Apeksha Patel, Director Purchasing, Ms. Poonam Chaudhary, Director Operations and Strategy Leader, Ms. Shilpi Gupta, Director Supply Chain Planning, and Ms. Rupal Agrawal, Director Supply Chain E-Commerce Business. Hello all. So first I would like to request you to please share with our audiences how do you spend your day, a working day of your life. Let's start with Apeksha first.
Apeksha, we cannot hear you.
Apeksha, you are on mute for us.
You're not able to unmute.
Okay, so meanwhile, let's start with Poonam then. Poonam, if you you can share your day with us.
Yeah, sure. And thank you so much, Mahima, asking for that particular question. And I'm so feeling nice to meet the entire panelist here, Rupal, Shilpi, Apeksha, and everybody. Firstly, thank you so much for inviting me on this panel discussion. I can divide my entire day into three broad buckets to start with. The first half of the day is been spent with interaction with my team members on the shop floor. The other half of the day, I end up doing some strategic innovation breakthrough project work, and the remaining 30 to 40% of the day's time is reserved for myself and my family. As I start my day as I start my mornings, I think I like to interact with my team members on the shop floor. There are very interesting conversation and the ideas we discussed throughout the morning regime, which not only help me improve the product quality for our customers and consumer, but we also discuss a lot of Kaizen, which also help me drive the manufacturing excellence at the floor. Like I said, the other half of the workday I usually spend in strategic thinking and doing some breakthrough work, which involves my discussions with the people outside of manufacturing facility. At times, we are having very interesting conversation with marketing and the brand team members, wherein I get an opportunity to present the cutting edge packing innovations for improving the customers and the consumers' life. The remaining 30 to 40% of my day's time is for my family and myself. I'm very, very deliberate in terms of checking on my family members, friends, and my dear ones. I also sometimes leverage this time to get acquainted with the external affairs. I follow some health regimes and at times pursue my hobbies. If not that, then I definitely learn new skills which are very, very essential to continue my professional journey. So if I were to summarize, Mahima, my day in one sentence, I would say I almost have it all. A very caring husband and a family who is supporting me throughout my professional career. Amazing network of leaders in P&G who has helped me in my journey so far. And a job satisfaction because I'm pursuing my passion in P&G with the roles I have been doing.
Wow, Poonam, that was just great to hear all about it. So let's go up next with Shilpi. Shilpi, how do you describe your day?
Hi everyone, I'm Shilpi and it's great to be here in this P&G NITIE-Equality Summit. So if I have to talk about my day, the one thing that I can tell you is it's never boring. So every single day there is a new challenge and I try to look at it as a learning opportunity. Like, you know, last 2 years have been like lots and lots of new things happening, right? From a ship which was stuck in Suez Canal to COVID related challenges to change in consumer and shopper behavior. So I think the one thing that I realized is over last 10 years is every single day, I think I've learned something new. And I possibly learned more in my first year in P&G than I did in my entire MBA. So for me, when I look at my day, I would say like supply chain has evolved, right? From a good to be a place to a heart of business. And it often in today's world defines the business choices we make as well as business success. And if I look back, right, how does my day go? I would say it's essentially into 4 quadrants. The first 25% goes in what I would say like supply chain health assessment. So we have some state-of-art dashboards technologies which I use with my team to look at our KPIs. And then we work through where we see risks and we use this, for direction setting and coaching my team. The second part is where we make business choices with cross-functional team. So this is the part where me and Apeksha possibly will talk on supplier related things, or me and Poonam will talk on manufacturing help. And if Rupal needs something on customers, we go and talk. So this is the part where we leverage this cross-functional connection in the supply chain. The third quadrant goes in being, say, ready for future. For example, what are the technology choices we need to make? What are supply designs we need to do? How do we build capability of our teams to be future ready? And the fourth part would go in day-to-day activities, right? The meetings that we have to do, the emails we have to send, the expense reports we have to file. So that's also the reality. But on top of it, what I make sure is that for the things that matter to me on personal front, I do find time for it, right? For me, it is about spending time with my family, to focus on mental and physical health, and also to have some downtime to, if I want to watch a Netflix show or some other show that's really going on. So overall, I mean, yes, it's crazy days some days, but every single day is a learning opportunity.
Wow, Shilpa, I can actually see how interrelated all your work is, be it with Apeksha or Poonam or Rupal. It's all interconnected for you guys. So let's hear about Rupal's day now. Rupal?
Hey, thanks, Mahima. I'd start with basics, right? So what is really critical for a business? Top line, bottom line, and cash. And so far what we've heard from Poonam and Shilpi looks like all legs of supply chain are somehow designed to ensure that we are delivering stellar results across these three parameters. E-commerce supply chain is no different. We do the same thing. Very simply put, our job is to ensure that our brands, our products are available at the right place, at the right time, at the right cost, in the right quantity, of the right quality, and these days at the right delivery lead times as well. Right, so we do all of that. There is base work. There is a lot of time spent on innovation. We ensure that we are staying ahead of the market and are really being the strategic advantage to the organization. A large part of the day also goes in the organization capability. We work with very, very large teams, interconnected teams, internal teams as well as external customer teams. So we ensure that the teams, the people are performing at their peak, and a large part of the day does get spent there. Bottom line, what I would say, Mahima, is that if the students here are wondering whether they would want to go ahead with the supply chain assignment, supply chain career or not, I would just say that, you know, if you like planning and analysis, if you like talking to people within your network, outside of your network, if you like negotiations, decision making, if you like complex problem solving, I'm sure you'll like supply chain as well.
Rupal, your answer has just made me more interested towards working in supply chain. Thanks a lot for that. And so lastly, we move to Apeksha. Apeksha, how is your day?
So good evening, everyone. I think lovely thoughts from my three lovely counterparts. We have worked together at some point in time, or we are still working together. So hope all of you and your loved ones are safe and healthy, right? This question and the comment is to the audience. So thank you, Mahima. I think how is my typical day is a very interesting question, because I find it very interesting that how I am making daily purchasing decisions in my personal life as well as my professional life. Right. So coming from a middle class family, when I was growing up, I was always taught to be value conscious, you know, that I should get worth for every rupee I spent. And even my mother, right? I mean, that doesn't mean that I'm always buying the cheapest things that are available, but I'm buying things that are generally suiting my need and are of good quality, right? So when it comes to my mother, she made sure, so she went little ahead and she made sure that she was spending, let's say, a little extra money to buy a fresh farm milk, right, versus the pasteurized dairy milk, because she wanted her children to be well nutritioned. Now, when you come to, let's say, a little bit mid-term or long-term purchasing decisions such as refrigerators or washing machines, you know, the process was the same. You will talk to your friends and family for recommendation. You will also research on your own which are the good brands, maybe visit few stores. And also once you have arrived at a decision, you will go and check which store is offering, let's say, Diwali, Dhamaka, or the New Year discounts. And you will go all scouting. And at the end of the day, when you're spending all of this money, finally it has to cater to your either personal or family need, right? So that was the base principle that you always follow in your day-to-day life. Now, all the shopping and buying decisions are really, you know, revolving around that whole need that we talk about. Now, I'm sure a lot of you are resonating with it, but are also intrigued that why I'm telling you all of this story when the question was something different. So as a purchasing or a sourcing professional, these simple daily principles that we use in our daily lives are actually used also when you are working in a sourcing function in a corporate environment, right? So if you look at a product and if you see it, what really goes into it can be very much classified into two buckets, direct and indirect. So direct is what basically raw materials and pack materials, which actually makes that product. And indirect is what really brings it to your doorstep in your hands. Then it is logistics services, the marketing and advertising spends that companies do. Also even the technology, right? Because these days you have e-commerce platforms. And this is where really, I have done several roles across these verticals over the last 11 plus years in P&G. And each and every experience was very unique. But yet 5 things I would say were very, very common to all of this whole sourcing journey, right? So first, you have a very close connection with your business counterparts on a day-to-day basis. So if I am a material buyer, then of course I am working very closely with, let's say, marketing team as well as the product R&D team to understand what does consumer want so that I can bring that sourcing solution. Then working with multifunctional teams. Let's say working with planning when it comes to then Shilpi, working with distribution when it is Rupal. The plant team, so Poonam comes into picture, right? So multifunctional teams are inherent part of, your daily interactions that generally happens. Then delivering the best total value to the company. I think I talked about value really enough. Just because I have savings target, it's not necessary that I go and take the cheapest supplier on board and say that, hey, my scorecard is green. But I also have to make sure that the supplier is bringing in the right quality as well as the right service level. And at the same time, I also have to make sure my supplier is feeling valued, so that I do get that right service level and they put their best foot forward when it comes to doing business with, let's say, my company. The fourth one is really dearest to my heart, and that is acting as an industry expert. Yeah. So sourcing function is very much strategic function when it comes to, when you're working in your day-to-day life, because we are the probably only function which are almost in connection with the outside world on a day-to-day basis, right? So we are looking at the industry, the market, the new capabilities, how these whole external headwinds are impacting our business, our suppliers' business, and hence our costs. Are there any supply chain challenges that we will expect? Are there any crises that we need to resolve, right? So you will always have your opinion counted at the seat when you are sitting with the business teams. Now, I recollect a story a few years back when I was working on a project proposal, and that is where, there was a lot of debate happening in the room that why the cost is so high. I mean, what is making this proposal so special? And after a lot of debate, the senior vice president looked at me and said, Apeksha, what do you think? Is this supplier taking us for a ride? And my simple answer was no. And everybody was stunned. And then I actually built up all the factors that were, making up that proposal. I also gave them options, right? That if you do this, then this is how you can optimize costs. And at the same time, I also highlighted that how my internal multifunctional team can help me redefine probably the scope, which may have a room to, make it fit within our budget while addressing our business need. After a lot of discussion, finally, I got the needed help and we were actually able to commercialize that project with the right cost, and in fact, additionally building in how that association with the supplier can give us year-on-year value, right? So that is where, as a sourcing professional on a daily basis, you will also be influencing a lot of business decisions. And the fifth one is basically the relationship management, right? And the crisis management. So I'm always called when there is a crisis or there is a relationship to be mended. If material is not reaching the plant, or if a celebrity is not turning up simply for the endorsement shoot, right? So that's where the whole purchasing relationship then comes into picture. And all of this effort really goes in making sure, how Rupal said, making sure that right quality product is with the consumer at a right cost in the right time. Now, by now, I'm sure the audience would have created how my day at work would have been, a little bit of impression. But on a regular day, I usually start with, hey, is there any crisis that I need to attend? Or otherwise, it really depends on the time of the year, you are in. I'm doing either some analytics work, writing sourcing strategy, delivering savings project with help of multifunctional teams, and the list just goes on. So I hope this gave a little bit better understanding of sourcing upstream function that you just mentioned, Mahima, and back over to you.
Thanks, Apeksha. I could actually resonate a lot with your story, and from what I understand, all four of your answers, that all legs of supply chain are interrelated to each other. And since we were actually trying to understand how your days goes, my next question to you is: when did you decided on joining a supply chain career, and what skills actually helped you?
So that's actually a very interesting question, because it's not that I always had a clarity. So I'm sure the audience also might be thinking, okay, what answer is going to come their way? See, I am also an engineer. I'm actually a fourth generation engineer in my family. So my great grandfather was an engineer. He built dams during British era. My grandfather, electrical engineer, he worked with Tata Power all his life. My father is a mechanical engineer and runs a small automobile repairing workshop in my hometown. So, and during my generation, now I can say it during my generation because 10 years or 12 years have passed since I started working. It was always told to have a good life, you have to become either a doctor or an engineer, right? Now, biology is something I never understood. So that was out of the table any which ways, even though my mother really wanted one of her kids to be a doctor. But all three of us turned out to be engineer. It runs in the genes, So basically, engineering was my choice. Again, I am a mechanical engineer, and as I was going through the courses, I also got a chance to work with Tata Motors for a period of 1 year, where I was doing my internship in their Pune manufacturing plant. And it was very thrilling experience, what you study, etc., really seeing it in front of your eyes and how different it can be. And there is so much more to it. And based on that, over a period of time, I also realized, that only being an engineer may not help me in the long run. So I had decided that I want to pursue masters. But that experience also helped me realize that I am probably not a person who would be happy in a boring technical life all along. Yeah, I'm more of a people person, and I would like to do something different. And that is where, after giving GATE, I attempted GATE once and I decided not to pursue it anymore. And then I talked with a couple of my college seniors, like you were also mentioning, Mahima, and I actually talked to some of the MBA Institute coaches as well, that what I should do. Because finally, I do not want my engineering degree to go to waste, right? And how do I pursue it? And supply chain was the answer. They said that there is so much more to it than what we know today. So you should definitely pursue. And that was a decision point, right? And in terms of skills, now you will ask me what I just explained for the last 5 minutes. It has nothing to do with my mechanical engineering degree or whatever I did in engineering. But let me tell you one thing. There are definitely 3 skills, and I will just again bucket it to be simply put. There are just 3 skills which are very much transferable skills that I carried along when I did my MBA and now that I'm working. Yeah. So the first one is structured thinking process. Yeah. So as I mentioned, sourcing function is actually a very strategic function, and that is where to really envision how to deliver the business need, you need to come up with the strategy, and for that you really need a structured thinking process, and that thinking process will also help you make sure the execution is really happening, bang on the way you want it to be. The second one is problem solving and analytical skills. Yeah, I also touched upon how in a daily basis we keep doing the analysis and try to bring the insights that help us drive the decisions. You can just take an example, a simple decision like whether I should manufacture something myself or I should outsource it to a third party. That decision is not very intuitive. It really needs a data-driven analysis to really arrive at that whole process to be able to, take a shot that yes, this is what makes sense. Because otherwise you will not be doing justice to, the monies that you are going to spend. And the third one is basically relationship management and the collaboration. That definitely doesn't go away. This is so core to the functioning of even our own daily lives, right? And that really helps you in your corporate lives as well. So interdependency is a way of life, is what I call. And that is also true, whether you are doing a job or you want to become an entrepreneur and start your own company, right? So working in a supply chain is not really, very different than working in any other field. When I entered supply chain, I knew very, very little. But just having that right mindset to learn continuously has brought me where I am in my career today. So I hope that was helpful and giving some, bits of advices to the new people who want to enter this field. So thank you, Mahima, for asking that question. And back to you.
So I'm pretty sure, Apeksha, that all those 3 pointers that you just mentioned is definitely help our audiences to build their careers in supply chain. And now my next question would go to Poonam. Poonam, I heard that you are from a manufacturing background and there are several gender myths when it comes to roles in manufacturing jobs. Can you tell us how your career has been and if you have come across any of these myths?
Which involves the hardcore manufacturing skills. Now to explain that point further and back to your question, I'll go ahead and share my example and my journey in P&G so far. So I started my career with Ernst & Young working with Unilever and then joined P&G 8 years ago. When I joined company, I have learned the fundamentals of planning and international logistics. Once I have learned my consumer needs, customer needs and market landscape, I then decided to learn the upstream supply chain through manufacturing sector. I have shared this intent with my manager and guess what? Immediately after some time, my functional head came to me and said, Poonam, here is the offer. And the offer was mainly for operations and strategic leader for personal healthcare categories, which are the sector which we are the products which we are producing at Ahmedabad plant. When the offer was given, initially I was in a very split mindset. Given there were myths around the manufacturing sector, and there were another two prominent reasons which kind of created fear in my mind. The first one definitely was I was lacking the entry-level manufacturing work processes knowledge. I was hardly having any experience of managing a big size teams, because in manufacturing we have a very big size team, a lot of people interaction to manage, etc. And on top of that, I'm a computer science engineer who was about to handle such a big responsibility for our personal healthcare category. During COVID times, we have seen this category doing wonderful. When the opportunity was offered and the role was kind of given to me for selection, I was in a split mindset, honestly. And what really helped me, I guess, Mahima, was the wonderful P&G mentors network that we have, wherein they not only help me understand what are my skills, how these skills are relevant for any manufacturing roles that is there. That actually helped me make my decision. They have also helped me explain how the manufacturing stint is going to fit into my long-term professional goal. And I made a choice. I made a decision to join the manufacturing leader for Ahmedabad plant. And guess what? After joining, I have to learn the manufacturing basis very quickly. And in P&G, the team who is listening the conversation, I would really want to emphasize and state this fact that in manufacturing, we have a very structured and thorough and the exhaustive learning modules which can be easily adopted to get the basic manufacturing skills learned. That helped me do some hands-on exercises on machines also. Very soon, machines became my friend. My teammates became my friend. And the other thing that is very unique about P&G is, would say, we have greater than 100 manufacturing facility all over the globe. That also helped me kind of create my network beyond the four walls of manufacturing plant. I am interacting with the manufacturing directors, subject matter experts. They are sharing their best practices across the globe, across the category, which I can easily reapply at my plant. So the way has the journey has become very simple for me as I joined the manufacturing sector. The other team that I mentioned, I was very afraid about handling the bigger sizes team, because in plant we have literally big teams working on lines generating the product 24/7. I would say, I think throughout my journey here at Ahmedabad plant, I learned to influence people. I learned to interact with them, empower them on daily decisions, etc. As a result, I think I got a recognition last time for being the best mentor for personal healthcare category at EMA level. So that had just helped me gain or add more strength and more skills to my portfolio. So that's how my manufacturing journey so far. And I'll just say one thing to summarize it, Mahima. Once you decide to pursue something, I think then the passion and the strength automatically comes in, and you just have to strive through it just to nail your passion. So yeah.
That was really an inspirational story. Thank you so much for sharing it with us. So my next question would actually go to Shilpi. Shilpi, have you ever found it challenging to be a supply chain planning leader, which is commonly believed to be a male-dominated field?
So Mahima, based on my experience, what I think is supply chain has evolved a lot. So it is not the same supply chain which was 5 years ago or 10 years ago. And what I have seen is, to a big extent, it's a very level playing field. And I believe, right, to succeed in supply chain, what it is dependent on is a series of, traits or skills which matter. It isn't dependent on your gender, whether you are male or female. And let me maybe kind of take you through what I mean. So when I say skills, right, I think of them as 3 skills. The first is like your technical skills. Say, for example, production management, demand management. Can you do projects? Can you do process improvement? Can you analyze data to understand what's happening on customer demand? Can you drive automation to reduce transactional tasks? So these are the basic technical skills that can help you succeed in supply chain. The second set of skills that I would say is business acumen. Say, for example, do you understand what's happening in your competitive landscape? Can you collaborate well across different supply chain functions? Do you understand what is, say, data-driven decision making? Can you take smart risks? Say, for example, in this COVID wave, right, we've had 3 waves. I would say every single wave, the supply chain challenges were different. One wave was about lockdown. One wave was about people's health at risk. One way was about like lot of international logistics issue. So for each of them, the kind of business acumen you need to have to be agile, to be ahead of the challenges, is what can help someone succeed. And the third one, which I would say is essentially the bedrock, is your behaviors, your skills. For example, are you a team player? Are you innovative? Can you be agile? Can you be disciplined? Can you work with others to problem solve? When there is an issue, can you communicate well? Now, if you look through all these skills that I've talked about, I don't think even one skill is gender specific. Nobody would say, a guy has this more and a girl has this less. So for me, what I feel, that as long as you are determined to succeed, and as long as you have some of these skills and a passion to do well, it really doesn't matter if you are a male or a female. The other thing that I can tell you, and this is more specific, I would say, to what I have seen, is P&G also is a company which has the intent. It also has the right infrastructure to help both male and female managers succeed. It also has very good role models, right? And people who have been there, done that, and also are willing to coach you. Like Poonam was sharing, when you are in a dilemma, there are people you can go to and they will help you. So I think with this kind of infrastructure that we have, the skills that we need, I think it is time that we take out some of our own, things that which hold us back. That this is a very male-dominated field, I cannot succeed. I actually have seen some of the best work happening across the, spectrum. Same role equally being done well by a woman or a man. So, if I can leave this one message is, at least let go of our own biases and then explore the field.
Shilpi, this is one point that I'm taking in with me today, that gender is not defined by skills, or skills are something which comes from within. Thank you so much for that. And so I move on to Rupal. Rupal, since you are a leader in the e-commerce business, my question to you is, what does it take to be successful in an e-commerce supply chain role?
Interesting question, Mahima. I don't think I'd be adding anything on top of what Shilpi just shared, right? She covered all the right skill sets that are required for anyone to win in a planning role. I think all of that she said applies for any supply chain role, or I would say any role for that matter. If I were to really think through and come up with points or traits that I have at least seen, admired in the leaders that have inspired me, I think one of the most critical skills or skills of that an individual needs to have is a very, very strong value system. And again, like Shilpi said, right, it is gender neutral. Integrity, passion for winning, strong ownership is something that would enable any individual to win. Similarly, I think she covered this already, but I think learning agility, right, and some external focus will help you stay ahead, will help you take smart risks. And lastly, I think interpersonal skills. Again, you'd be working with people, you'd be working with teams, and it'd be so important that you can build that trust together and work together, partner together to deliver breakthrough results. So, short answer, Mahima, anyone can do well in this role. Men, women, I think they all have an equal right to win in any kind of a supply chain role.
Thanks so much, Rupal, for that. So my one last final question to all of you is, if you could give one line message to the girls aspiring for supply chain or manufacturing careers here. We'll start with Apeksha first.
Okay, I'll say 2 lines. Career decision should not be bound by constraints and biases that you hear around. Understand yourself, understand your skills, and then leverage your strengths to really make a choice to have a thriving career. That's all I will leave you with.
Wow. Thanks, Apeksha. Poonam?
Yeah, sure. So the students who are listening to the conversation, my advice would be creating your comfort zone beyond your comfort. What it actually means is never be happy and complacent with the skills that you have already got. Keep learning, keep experimenting. It might involve taking some smarter and calculated risk, but ultimately, once you decide to have it, you kind of get through it. So try and leave a legacy in everything that you are doing, and don't forget to bring energy to the table in the tasks which have been lined up for you. So that's from my side, Mahima.
Thank you so much, Poonam. Shilpi, can you go next?
So you know what, I was thinking through, Poonam stole my words, but I'm just going to repeat it because I truly believe in it. So, and this is a life philosophy that I also stand with, right? Which says, you know, you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. What I mean is, right, I mean, it's okay to do things that you know you may succeed in, but I think it's also fun to explore things which you haven't done before, because that is where you can actually find a lot of happiness, right? When you do something you've not done before, you break a new benchmark, you make some breakthroughs. So I would say, just don't go by what you've seen happen. It's also time to, you know, change and to do what makes you happy. So a little discomfort goes a long way in growing you. And the second tip, because, you know, Poonam shared this, I'll also share is, like, of all the 3 things I said, right, which is technical, behaviors, business acumen, I firmly believe the one thing that stands people apart is this business partnership. So as you grow in your careers, just don't become a good supply chain manager or a sourcing manager, become a very good business partner. Understand what's happening in the business and be accretive to business. And I believe with both these things, I hope, I mean, the team here who's listening to us takes something back and we could have added some value to your day. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Shilpi. And lastly, Poonam, if you could share your insights with us.
I'll go next. I think I have only one message to share, which is that I would encourage all of the women listening to this talk today that they should take a leap of faith in themselves. I'll be honest, I wasn't very clear when I was doing my post-graduation as to whether I wanted to go after supply chain as my career choice. I liked studying supply chain, but then there were so many myths around me, right? People telling me that I might not be able to grow as much in a supply chain career because it is a male-dominated field, so on and so forth. But I think at one point in time, I took that leap of faith in myself, and I would say I have had my ups and downs. It hasn't been a smooth ride. But another thing that I can say with conviction is that it has been a fun ride. I have learned a lot. It has been an enriching experience. Of course, courtesy P&G people, it's amazing culture. I would end by saying that trust yourself, take that leap of faith in yourself. I'm sure all women here can do as well as men can in STEM roles. Thanks, Mahima.
Thank you so much, Rupal. Thank you. So having this conversation with all four of you, hearing about your lives, how your day goes, how your stories have been so far, I already feel inspired. And I do believe if a girl aspires for something, she can definitely make that happen. And I'll not take much of a time. Thank you so much, Apeksha, Poonam, Shilpi and Rupal. It was great having you all on the panel. Thank you once again. I would hand it over back to Rupali to announce the winners of the quiz. Rupali, back to you.
Thanks, Mahima. I'm sure everyone's waiting for that announcement, but just one quick word here that it was a very, very engaging conversation on supply chain management, something new for perhaps people like me who've been mostly in the communications and the digital and television space. So thank you, a big, big learning for us as well. And now it is time to share the winners of the equality quiz. And there you have it on your screens. Those are the ranks. I would advise all the winners who are mentioned here, please take a screenshot and keep it for later. And yes, a big round of applause as well from everybody for your win. And I would also like to announce the top 3 winners by their name. The winner is Krisha Yadav. I hope I've got the name correct. And congratulations for your win. You are the first prize winner. We also have a first runner-up. That's Kashyap Kedia. And we have a second runner-up as Rajat Sagar. And for all the other winners, NITIE and P&G will share the details on email with you all. I hope you all have also taken the screenshot of the rankings, and congratulations once again. And now I would like to invite Professor V.B. Kanapuri, the Dean of SRC and Professor at NITIE, for the closing address. Professor, if you can have your camera and audio on, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rupali, right? And thank you very much for inviting me, and thank you, the team. Let me put it like this. It must have been a great session for all of you who have been there since the beginning of this session. I'm sure it must have been very enriching and a great learning experience for everyone who has participated in this deliberations. At the outset, let me thank all the distinguished speakers who have taken time out of the busy schedule and then shared their rich experience in terms of their experience sharing. And I'm sure our students and the audience, whosoever all participated in these deliberations, would have benefited a lot through these deliberations. I understand that the summit highlighted.
Annapurna, if I can come in here, could you adjust your frame a little bit, come towards the camera, please? Yes, thank you so much.
Is it okay?
Yes, perfect. Could you continue now? Thank you.
Yeah. The summit, the Equality Summit, which was organized jointly by NITIE and P&G, must have taken a lot of crucial issues and highlighted the important role of academia and the industry put together, and how together we can make opportunities and how we can involve people, create opportunities for women at large. In fact, the recent developments also bring home this very important lesson that to build an equal world, it is imperative for all of us to come together and work in an integrated and a coherent way. Women, as it is, have got a very important role, and their empowerment is very crucial to advancing the culture of peace in all vectors, whether we talk of education, sustainable development, economic, social development, human rights, equality, right? And then participation, democratic participation. All these things basically advocate on basically the true knowledge, wisdom, tolerance, and understanding at all levels, right from the smallest unit in which they are associated in a family, a community, a country, a region, and globally at large. I once again would like to thank all the distinguished speakers for sharing their valuable insights on this platform. Your inspiration will lead to a meaningful action on building equal workforce, equal society, and your support is invaluable in achieving a more inclusive and equal tomorrow. We will look forward to a more collaborative experience in the years to come. So the presentation is there coming up. Special thanks to the US India Business Council for the support in enhancing the event to such a large scale. Then hearty congratulations to the P&G team, the faculty who have been working relentlessly for the last 2.5 months. And then I would like to congratulate all our students, the student team who worked relentlessly to make this event a huge success. I can see some of the students' photographs coming there. And I would also like to thank all of our agency partners for enabling this event and making it a huge success. Congratulations to all the winners who showcased their knowledge, all the participants for joining us, and it was indeed a great experience and a pleasure to host you all. Thank you and wishing you a great day. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Kanapuri. And with that, we draw a close to the NITIE and P&G Equality Summit. Conversations, of course, can really open up minds, give us multiple perceptions, help address biases, and empower us with tools towards driving gender equality. It has been such an enriching experience, really, hearing the thought leaders, hearing the academia, and hearing the corporate professionals. I hope you all enjoyed the summit as much as we enjoyed putting it together and producing it. I leave you with another beautiful film on driving gender equality. Have a beautiful evening, everyone. Goodbye.
अरे इतनी जल्दी उठ गई जा ब्रश कर बेटा you have to finish your breakfast. Very nice. Finish this, okay? Toast.
Thank you.
क्या बनाया?
मैं स्विमिंग पूल से
मेरा भी तो लगा है।
ओह हाँ, आपकी कितनी फ्लोर की है? 1, 2
Dinner finished. Sorry,
भी सुनोगी आज?
उसकी फेवरेट बर्फ वाली.
बर्फ वाली.
The cobbler made shoes.
Madhu,